Happy Tuesday. I am Annette Jessica, the founder of Confident Parenting and a sleep and potty consultant, and we are back with another live today that I know you all will enjoy. So if you're new to Confident Parenting, then I'll just tell you a little bit about us. We are a village of resources for families. And its main two things we do is help you solve your sleep struggles and approach and navigate potty training process. And we are inundated with families and kiddos who are struggling with the battle of the poops. So kids who are chronically constipated, suddenly constipated once they start this process, kiddos that choose to withhold because of the process or because they have a history of it being uncomfortable. So we're super excited today to be joined by our two guests who are going to help us make some sense of this. Hello, Jessica.
Hi, Erica.
Hi. You are sideways. Do you want to flip yourself?
No shocker there. Hang on.
We have serious difficulties with tech.
There you go. Now you're upright. Welcome. I am so excited to be joined by both of you today and to meet you for the first time in person. This is great.
Thank you.
Okay. So let me do you got to get real close together. Let me do a little intro for our audience. So this is Annette and Jessica. Annette Thomas, wait for us. This is Annette. There we go. Is a pediatric pelvic floor physical therapist. And helps families with constipation, encopresis, and enuresis, basically pee and poop accidents. And Jessica, hi Jessica, is a registered dietitian, and you help families achieve normal bowel control through diet and supplements. And Jessica and Annette work with families in person at their constipation clinic in New Hampshire and virtually every step of the way. So they're going to fill us in today on, first of all, just how common it is for families to be struggling with this, and then how diet and pelvic floor exercises can help. So welcome to both of you. Thank you for making the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to talk to your followers and share a little bit about what we do and how we can help the parents and all the kiddos out there.
Yeah, so let's back up for a minute. So our team started offering potty training help a few years ago, and what we thought would happen was we would help families know how to dive in, how to approach the process. But what we've discovered is that we are inundated by families who are already in the process and are really, really, really stuck. So the first thing I love to do is just normalize this for families that are thinking that they are alone or that something is wrong with their kiddo. I feel like just like with sleep, this is something that people don't necessarily tell anyone is happening because there's whatever attached to it. So can you just first speak to like, what are you seeing? And like, what are families going through?
Yeah. So I think similarly, when we started working together, Annette and I have actually worked together sharing an office space for a little while, and Annette had gone for this pediatric pelvic floor specialty and was starting to work with constipated kids, and she was like, we could really use working together. And I think when we started out, we thought like, oh, we're just going to do like diet education and you're going to do pelvic floor exercises and
not thinking there'd be an influx of people.
Right. Like it's going to be like this kind of this small little thing that we work on together. And we have been shocked at the volume of clients that we're seeing both in the clinic and then online, as well as how deep of an issue or challenge this really is, not just for the child, but for the family in whole, right? Like a child that won't go to the bathroom doesn't just affect the child and maybe the mom. It affects the siblings, it affects the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, family gatherings. It's
what we're seeing is that it just takes over the entire every minute of family life and mood. And we have families who are, they're in tears. We have kiddos that are getting kicked out of school. It's really a big deal and a big stressor at a time when we don't really need additional stressors on our plate, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so if, moms and parents, if your kiddo, your family is struggling, just know that you absolutely aren't alone, even if no one's talking about it. It's a very common problem. Kids have a lot of valid reasons for being fearful, and there are a lot of physical reasons. Maybe it's not a choice they're making, it's something that's outside of their control. And that's mainly what I think we're going to talk about today. So let's start with diet. So a lot of kids are picky eaters. A lot of our foods are depleted of things that maybe they should have in them. So Jessica, what role does diet play? How does that impact the bowels, and how can that impact this potty process?
Yeah, so diet is super important for gut health and overall health, right? But I think the thing that's more important than food is actually water. So many kids come to us, they're on a fiber supplement already, they're taking a probiotic, the parents are pumping them full of fruits and vegetables, whatever they can get in, but the kid is drinking like 1 cup of water a day, and it's not making any difference. And I always say, fiber without water is cement in the GI tract. So I almost always take every child off a fiber supplement, a fiber gummy, whatever it is. Most of the fiber gummies on the market are really just glorified candy and aren't really doing a whole lot for the child. And in some cases, depending on what exactly the situation is, it's actually making things worse. So the number one thing we work on is fluid. So, whether that's flavoring the water, playing games with the water, we use that Plant Nanny app a lot. That's a big recommendation for us, where the child actually waters a plant, and if they meet their goal, the flower blooms, and if they don't, the flower dies.
Maybe not for sensitive kids.
Right. So water is like the number one place that I start with all of these kids, and our kids need far more water than we would ever expect.
Yeah. Are you able to throw out some numbers? So our audience, generally, they have like 2 and 3 year olds, sometimes 4. What are we looking at? And obviously some of the water can come from food, right?
Exactly right. So under 4, the recommendation is really that 16 to 24 ounces. After 4, it's like, 30 to 40 ounces and on up from there. But that toddler age is right around the 16 to 24, which to an adult doesn't seem like a lot, but for a toddler, that's a lot.
So what about the mom who's listening and thinking, that's okay because my kiddo drinks tons of milk all day long? What would you say about that?
So I always say non-milk fluid. So, milk is a great source of calcium and protein and vitamin D, and it's important in our diet. But if your child is a heavy milk drinker, there is a chance that is impacting their constipation. I don't love removing foods in general from kids' diets. Kids are picky enough. They have a lot of preferences, so I don't like to take anything away. But if your child is a big milk drinker or a big cheese eater, those are 2 things that I suggest limiting if possible. If you have a big milk drinker, you can water down that milk really easily. So, start with 3/4 milk, 1/4 water, and then increase it from there, just to get a little bit more fluid into them. But yeah, a big milk drinker or a big cheese eater, those are 2 things that I would say, if your kid is having trouble going, it might be time to be a little bit more limited with those things.
Okay. And on the flip side, what are things that families can look to add in that might help?
Yep. So high water fruits and veggies are really helpful. Things like melons, cucumbers, zucchini, tomatoes, those things are really high in water. All of the pea foods, those are high in sorbitol, which is a natural stool softener. So peaches, plums, pears, prunes. Kiwi is really, really beneficial for constipation. Cherries are very beneficial for constipation. So those are some things that we can add into the diet, and you can get creative with those things. If they're not fresh in season, you can get frozen, as long as it's not in a syrup, like a sugary syrup. One of my kids' favorite desserts is frozen cherries with a little whipped cream, and they love that like every night after dinner. So that's a really easy way to get something in that tastes like a treat, a dessert, but also helps with the child's bowel habits as well.
Okay, and then sometimes diet obviously is not going to be enough. So I know that in your course, which is linked in all of our places, our bio and our stories, you do list all these foods, you give recipes, you give numbers for the water intake, all of that, which is awesome and super helpful. The class is amazing, by the way. But you also talk about some supplements that families can use. Do you want to speak to that briefly? And should families feel, defeated if they need to add a supplement in for their kiddo?
Oh, not at all. I would say 99% of the kids we work with need something more than diet. Diet is something that takes some time to adjust and to work on. And your child might love kiwi today and tomorrow, but the next day they hate kiwi and can't believe that you would ever suggest it ever. So,
well, there's a history of constipation. We haven't really touched on this, but there's probably a bigger backup within the body, and diet might move that out.
Exactly right. So, keep working on the diet, but if you need to add in, there's lots of different osmotic laxatives. We like to use a magnesium supplement in the clinic. It's a little bit more natural. And there's a couple different magnesiums that we like to use. Certainly there is Miralax out there for the families that are comfortable using Miralax. So those are some of the things. An osmotic laxative pulls water into the stool and makes it soft and easy to pass. So, using some of those things either daily or as needed, there's no shame in that game. A lot of these kids need a little extra help.
Okay. And I should have said, if anybody watching has a question, feel free to put it in the comments, but we did get one in advance and it actually makes sense to ask it now. So this mom writes, I want to switch my daughter from Miralax to Natural Calm, which is what you were just mentioning. Yeah. That's the natural alternative. She's 2.5. She's been taking two teaspoons of Miralax daily for the last 10 months. Can I just go from one to the other, or is there a weaning process?
So I always suggest to wean a little bit. The amount of Natural Calm a 2.5-year-old is going to need isn't significant. It's about a half a teaspoon to a full teaspoon, depending on stool consistency. So actually switching over might be a little bit tricky to wean. But it wouldn't be harmful to, go down to 1 teaspoon of the Miralax and add in a little bit of Natural Calm for a couple days and then switch over. Yeah.
And for anyone that feels overwhelmed by that, it's all in the course. What to start with, what to drop down to, and alternatives. Okay, awesome. So while we're still on the topic of diet, anything else you want families to know that we didn't touch on yet?
I have a lot of families that come to us wanting to cut out gluten, cut out dairy. I'm a big believer, as I mentioned before, of keeping everything in the diet unless there is a true food allergy or intolerance. So if you have actual testing that's been done and indicates going gluten-free or fully dairy-free, then yes, you should. But I don't rush to remove all kinds of things from a child's diet. So that's one big thing I would say. Like, let's keep these kids eating, and if we need to add a little bit more Natural Calm, I would rather do that.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. Well, thank you. That is super helpful. Okay, if we switch over to Annette. Awesome.
Now the good stuff, Erica.
Right, you're close again. So we talked about diet, kind of jamming up the works. Let's pretend that our audience has no idea what the pelvic floor is. I mean, if you're a mom, you probably do, right? What is the pediatric pelvic floor, and how does that factor into bowels and potty training?
Okay. So the pelvic floor is pretty much the muscles at our bottom, and it actually forms like the shape of a bowl. And that's what controls the opening and closing of when we poop and pee for kids. So just like, our muscles, our hamstrings, they get tight, so does the pelvic floor, and we need these muscles to be at their optimal range to work properly. So as far as how it affects the bowel and bladder, if the kid's not relaxed when they're going, which is a problem with most of our kids, they tense up and they're not going. So I know you said you work with the 2 and 3-year-old range. I always look at, not me personally, but the parents will tell me, I'm like, what do they look like when they're going poop, or what's going on? And they'll say they're clenching and they're making that squeezing face, and they're like, they're really working hard, they're really pushing. But in reality, they're probably contracting those muscles down there, and it's a coordination thing sometimes. So it's kind of trying to figure out, are they really contracting? Are they relaxing? Are they pushing using the right muscles? Are they bringing other muscles into push? So I look at that. We do get a lot of withholders. So those kiddos obviously tighten their pelvic floor. They tend to have a more tense pelvic floor.
So just to clarify, some kids are choosing to clench.
Yes.
Other kids are really confused about what's happening down there, and they're intending to push, but they're clenching.
Yes, they don't realize which muscles to use, which is where I'll use biofeedback in the clinic, and that can actually tell me, oh, he's using these muscles, or oh, he's not using these at all. We need to figure out how to teach him to use these.
And I think that's really helpful for parents to hear, because it's easy to think your child's just giving you a hard time, but we always like to say maybe they're having a hard time.
Yeah, and I do feel bad, because I know a lot of them, they'll say, I'm trying, Mom, I'm trying, I'm really pushing, and the poor little guys are just tightening up down there and have no idea.
So, have to work that hard, right?
yes, you shouldn't have to work that hard. So, and then getting the stool soft too with it. So, so there's a bunch of different things that could be going on down there, and that's what my job is, to figure out what's going on. And
exactly. So obviously, if a family came to a clinic type setting, biofeedback could happen, exercises could happen. But for families that aren't near you or just want to try a few things at home, what can we do in terms of if our kiddo is struggling to relax and release?
I think the biggest trick, is breathing. So a lot of these kids, they're holding their breath, right? They're trying to push, and they're like, ooh. If they're doing that, we're clenching here. So we want to do something where we're blowing out, we're exhaling. So if a child's sitting on a toilet and you know that they have to go and the poop is there, but they're like, it's not coming out, have them blow something like a pinwheel or one of those party horns or bubbles. Just blow out so that those muscles down there will then open up and relax.
And you also talk about the mooing like a cow.
Mooing like a cow. She's seen me in the clinic doing that. We're so loud. So you could say like moo, and if everyone do it at home, sit on a hard chair, feet flat on the floor, and just moo out loud. You can feel a little pushing down there, and that's what they need, that little pushing down to help the stool come out.
Yeah. And can you speak to posture a little bit, toilet posture?
Yeah, that's a big issue. That's the first thing I always ask when they come in. You really need those feet supported. Knees higher, so you're in like a squat position, so knees higher than your hips, legs apart, and you want to do just like a little lean forward. And what that's going to do is help the poop come straight out, versus if you sit in any other posture, there's like a little angle. It changes the angle of the rectum. And so if your kid's already fighting constipation, that's just adding to the difficulty. But a lot of kids dangle from the toilet, their feet, right? Or they're not supported, or they're on their tiptoes. So it's just making them more tight down there without them knowing it. Yeah,
squatty potty or anything like you said that puts the knees higher.
I love squatty potty.
And we actually have on our Facebook page, we actually have lots of videos on proper potty posture and troubleshooting the proper potty posture. Like some kids' toilets are much higher or lower, and that really affects how high their knees need to be. And that gets creative with what to put under the feet, other than just a squatty potty. So those are all available.
Awesome. Wonderful. So again, to kind of normalize this for families and help with their mindset and their expectations, everybody wants a quick fix, right? Families come to us and they want to potty train it over a weekend, or they've been in it and they want to fix it in a few days, which I understand. It often doesn't look like that for kids who are constipated and or withholding, and the two things often go together. So what timelines are you seeing for these families? What are we getting into when we have to deal with this?
I'm going to say first, then we'll let you chat, because you do a lot of meds. But I always ask them, how long have you been dealing with this? We have kids that are younger that have been, a few months, 6 months. We're like, okay, this can be a quick, more quick fix. There's kids that come in that's been going on since they were 2, and they're coming to see us at 7 or 8 years old. So we try to explain, like, it took this long, this problem you've been dealing, it's going to take time to slowly, and a lot of it is like behavior change and things that you can't do overnight as well. So it is a process.
Yeah. I will say the younger you can catch it, the better. So as Annette mentioned, we do work with a lot of older kids that it started when the child was 2 or 3. And so that's 5-6 years of withholding, and the dysfunction that comes with that, versus a 3-year-old who's only been withholding for 6 months or a year. That's a really different situation, and we have a lot of success pretty quickly with those kids. It is something that most families have to be mindful of for a good 6 months to a year, but it doesn't look the same at 6 months as it did at 1 month. You know, it's a much different feel.
And what we see is a lot of maintenance afterwards. If we skip the maintenance, they just go right back to
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we did get a question. Thank you, Kathy. So, sorry, I need to be able to see it here. Do we need to wean off of Restorelax, which I'm actually not, is that like Miralax?
It's the same as Miralax, yeah. So she must be in Canada or Europe.
Okay, got it. My daughter's been on it for over a year, recommended by our doctor. She initially said, take a tablespoon for a month, but then what? With 3 question marks. And I know this is what we are all seeing. Unfortunately, we'll get back to her question in a second, but unfortunately, it seems like most doctors know to recommend is the Miralax, the Restorelax, and when they don't give you any follow-up of what to do next, how to wean off of it, and they also don't say what to do if it isn't changing anything, or the recommendation is just to go up in the dosage. And what we see is that sometimes compounds the problem. We get a lot of leaky stool that kids can't control, but it isn't solving the actual root cause. So if you could speak to that, but just Kathy's question, like, what does she do if she's been on it for a month and I assume no progress, although she didn't really say. I don't know if they want to switch or get off.
Yeah, so a lot of it, you're right, Erica. It depends on why we're on it to begin with and what's happening at the amount that the child is on. So, you know, for that child, if the child is going regularly and the stools are fairly soft and they've worked on either withholding and or the diet and things have improved, then it's time to start weaning a little bit and see what happens. If the child is withholding or has dietary challenges or pelvic floor and we haven't worked on any of that and nothing has improved, we either need to change to something that will help, or in the case of a lot of withholders, it might be time to add a stimulant. You know, an osmotic laxative like Restorelax or Miralax, it softens the stool. It does not stimulate a bowel movement. And there's a big difference between those two things.
We always think like softening a bunch of stool that's going to slam into a door that's locked up tight.
Yes, exactly. And as you mentioned, the looser that stool becomes, the more accidents we have, especially for a child who's not willing to actually poop. So it's really, it's kind of a hard question to answer without having all of the information. But there are some other things that might need to happen based on what exactly is happening with that child.
And unfortunately for a lot of these kiddos, they end up needing what we call a cocktail of different things. So something that's softening, something that's stimulating. We're also watching the diet, doing the breathing, all of that, which is, it's a lot for parents. But if we liken it to any other, you know, medical issue, it often is like a multidisciplinary type thing. So that, you know, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Awesome. So I want to be mindful of your time. We can wrap up soon, but do you want to tell everybody a little bit about the services that you offer for families, your class, your group, and all the places they can find you?
Sure.
Jessica would love to do that.
So our website is theconstipationgurus.com, and we are on Instagram and Facebook, Constipation Gurus Kids, on both. We're a little bit more active on Facebook than we are on Instagram, but we're working on Instagram too. We just launched our Poop Boot Camp, which is open enrollment. Erica, I know you have personally taken the course. It sounds like, thank you for that awesome.
I mean, we know a lot, but there were things in there that were, you know, we all complement each other. So they're really, really helpful, even for us.
Excellent. Good. And we designed the Poop Boot Camp with your parents, you know, child in mind, right? We work with these kids every day in the clinic, and we really designed the course to be like 6 sessions with Annette and or I in our clinic, and exactly what we would do with the children that we work with. So that is all available online. They're on-demand classes. So it's really helpful for parents to kind of take the course in bite by bite and apply it. We have a great workbook that goes along with each lesson to apply it to your child and your situation. So that is available. The course also includes membership into our private Facebook group, which is a parent community, right? And we're really learning from these parents. Parents are helping one another. Annette and I are in there as well. We offer live Q&A.
In there with speakers.
I'm sorry, say that again.
You do lives in there yourselves and then with guest speakers.
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right. So that's all available in there. And then for families that really need more attention and really a one-on-one situation, we do offer a virtual consult as well. And we've actually bundled the course and the consult for a little bit of a discount. So we have a lot of ways to help, and our goal is to really bring a lot of help to a place where there just isn't a whole lot available to parents.
It's definitely there's a missing link. Somewhere. And even with doctors. And I would just say, finally, to parents, if you're not getting what you need from the pediatrician or even the GI, there are other resources and other alternatives out there. We see a lot of pushback from doctors, which is frustrating, I'm sure, for parents. That's why it's so exciting to find your help. And then obviously if families happen to be in New Hampshire, they can come to your clinic in person.
Yep. And we do accept insurance if they are in New Hampshire, or we actually have had some families travel from outside of New Hampshire, but if they come see us, we can bill insurance. So, but that is an option as well.
All right. Awesome. Wonderful. So that poop boot camp, that's the tongue twister, is linked in our bio and in our stories if you want to go check it out. This was awesome. I hope that families out there that are struggling will be like, what? Who is this? We need them. And finally find the help that they need. You are not alone. So thank you both so much for your time, and I'm sure we'll have you back again in the future.
We would love that. Thank you so much, Erica.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.